That's a deal, right? Ride with me if you ride with me. You can slide with me if you feel like 550 on the 5 sticky. Come get high with me. That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right? So they want me down and out. Hey. We ain't going out like that. We ain't going out like that. Watch me go and bounce right back. Down for the count, but the hound strike back.
Here we are, back again, another episode of Whole Brother Live. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for the people that have shared and reached out with questions, and for the people from years ago that were tuning in and have stuck around after a hiatus. So I appreciate all of you. There's a lot on the docket today, and I just want to say up front, a lot of it deals with black culture and things that go on in our community. And I have to preface this uh, because we live in a moment where I think people have gotten too sensitive, um, overly emotional, and irrational. All those things lead to being irrational. And that's what's happening. Not always the case, but that's what's happening. And what I'm talking about is we're at a point now in our culture where if uh, it used to be, if a person that's not black says something about black people that's critical, they might get accused of being anti black or racist. We're now at a point, if one black person says something about black people as a whole, about a cultural issue, or has a critique, black people call other black people anti-black for criticizing black people. It's very interesting. There's this thing where I've experienced both, the one I just mentioned, but also the one I'm about to mention. If a black man has a critique for another black man, it's like, why are you tearing down another black man? That's why we can't progress as a people, because you tearing other black men down. Here's the thing. There has to be some level of accountability, especially if it is somebody black from somebody else to somebody else black. There has to be there, because otherwise we're just leaving open the door for abuse and misbehavior that goes unaddressed. So it can't be because you're black. If you're doing something wrong, I'm gonna just be quiet about it because you're black, because we got to stick together. That's not really sticking together. That's chaos. That's debauchery. That's dysfunction. So you know, tearing down other black men, there is something that I can say that exists that is tearing down another black man, but I don't think it's holding another black man accountable for something he did that was wrong or disrespectful or unjust. Um, Especially if you hold everybody else accountable too. And in terms of the whole anti-black thing, it just seems so goofy to me that we've gotten to this point where people are not intelligent or educated enough to have a more nuanced response. The two, and maybe I'm coming in hot today, but hear me out. One example of this is the if you're black criticizing black people, you're anti-black. The other thing I see is um, if you have a critique for black people that a white person has said before, then it means that you're just articulating, you're coming from a Eurocentric perspective. And to me, the way that they're being used, these are some of the most insincere, ignorant, unnuanced responses to some of these things. And we got to do better. And I say all this to say some stuff went down this week that I want to respond to that really is ignorant. You know, there's some ignorant stuff that went down this week, and I sit back and I watch, and I get frustrated because, as I've said many times, the most visible black men in America are rappers. And at the same time, the most visible black men tend to be the most dysfunctional and the most ignorant. And this has nothing to do with their politics. This is just their personal lives, their ideologies, um, not even necessarily because of their politics. I don't think having a certain politics makes you ignorant. Being ignorant, generally speaking, makes you ignorant. Um, Rappers are the most visible black men, unfortunately, and it affects how other communities view us. Rappers are the most visible black men, and in many cases, the most dysfunctional. And you'll see why I'm saying this, adding this piece as we get deeper into the conversation. But in close second behind rappers is probably comedians. And comedians get to use the veil for their ignorance of it's just comedy, it's just a joke. And I have noticed a lot of them duck responsibility or accountability for their ignorance because everything's just a joke. And we'll get to that in a minute. But some stuff went down this week and we got to talk about it. In addition to um, the stuff with rappers and comedians, there was also Donald Trump's inauguration, um, which overlaps with rappers as well, and that whole thing. And then I'm giving you an overview of the things I'm gonna cover today. Another thing is bringing all this together is this topic of bitter black men. We need to talk about that. Bitter black men, bitter baby daddies. That is a necessary conversation, especially in light of us being post Kevin Samuels. There was this army of men rallying around Kevin offering critiques to women, but we don't see men rallying around critiques for men. We all want to do better. We'll rally around this person that's calling us out for the ways that we're screwing up. It doesn't happen. And I think that points again to the ignorance, the brokenness, the immaturity. But I'm going to be that person today, talking to the men about ways that we need to improve. And some men tend to receive it and others tend to run away from it. But I do think, regardless of whether it's applauded or not, it still needs to be said. So let me think. Are we going to start with Trump? Are we going to start with people pissing off Martin Luther King Jr.'s daughter? Jesus. Or bitter black men? Let me deal with the political stuff first. So Donald Trump was inaugurated earlier this week. And even before the inauguration, uh, people were getting criticized, getting backlash for performing at some of his pre-inauguration activities or even during the inauguration. So Nelly's name came up, Rick Ross, Snoop Dogg, and Soldier Boy. Um, and of note, I have seen Nelly do a podcast responding to the backlash. And the host asked him, like, how do you feel about people saying that you're supporting the white supremacists? And Nelly was basically saying, I would need you to show me the white supremacy. The only white supremacy I know about is the '94 crime bill. Oh wait, that was Joe Biden. So it seemed like he had some prep notes on deflecting to Joe Biden, and somehow he's completely unaware of Trump and why people call him a white supremacist, a white nationalist, a racist, or supporting those ideals. Somehow he doesn't know about that. So there's the ignorance aspect, and then there's the aspect of money. People who lack integrity and will do anything for a check. I think it's one thing if you're living in dire straits, you can't eat, and Donald Trump calls you to perform his inauguration and you needed to put food on your table. That's one thing. But it's another thing when you're already at a certain place and you still are doing that. Um, and then again, so many of these artists pretend to have certain wealth that they don't have. They may need the check and they'll tap dance for it. But I think it's important, one, for us to be educated of why people were so upset that these artists got backlash. And I did a video about it. Uh, Donald Trump has Stephen Miller advising him. Just Google Stephen Miller. It's very simple. He's a white nationalist. And there's others who I would call white nationalists. They wouldn't embrace the label, but white nationalists, racists, some call them neo Nazis, others have called them that. But look into Sebastian Gorka, previous advisor for Trump. Look into Steve Bannon. So Steve Bannon and Stephen Miller. Part of it is uh, Trump traffics in white nationalism and racism and racist talking points, and he feeds that base because unfortunately that is a big part of the Republican base. And I'm not talking about Democrats today, right? I'm not talking about Democrats. I can. I don't mind. I'm not invested in either party. Nobody's paying me. And even if they were, I'm not going to tap dance or lie. So the truth is, there's critiques I could raise for the Democratic Party, but so often when you talk about Republicans, they deflect to, well, the Democrats. Let's just look at this. Historically, black people do not in masses vote for the Republican Party. And I want the Republican Party to take that seriously and actually care about why. I don't think the majority of black people are ignorant when they choose to pass up on voting for the Republican Party. There's a reason for that. And part of that is the racism. And again, people try to make it about Democrats. Well, there's racists over there too. Sure, there may be. But I do think both parties approach this very differently. Democrats seemingly do try to make some efforts to appeal to black people and somebody other than just the average white man. Whereas the Republican Party unashamedly lets you know they say it's American values or America first, but in many cases, they make it clear and they benefit from it by just focusing in on white men and sometimes white women. That's what it's about. So that's why Trump has these people advising him. That's why the things that are being advanced are roll back DEI, roll back affirmative action. Why? Because white people are uncomfortable with it. So this isn't new information. Like if you just look into what's going on and what's being said, people have their reasons for being upset for black artists supporting something like that. Uh, and again, if you ask hardcore Republicans about, well, why don't black people support you? A lot of times they'll just pivot. Well, they'll probably start saying something really racist or just assume it's because black people are liberal and want to vote Democratic because we're just so liberal. But the thing is, we're really not. I said in a video earlier this week, it seems to me that most black people I know, near and far, have very conservative values. So again, we have to ask, why isn't the Republican Party able to get that vote when we do have a lot of shared values in terms of social things? Most black people I know believe that marriage is between a man and a woman, going back to their Christian values. Most black people I know are Christians. Most black people I know believe that children shouldn't be transitioning, and that honestly, whatever you're born as is what you're always going to be for the rest of your life, regardless of what surgery you get. Um, Black people, most that I know, do not want a whole bunch of government to overreach. So these are the questions that I wish a person with a platform like Nelly or Snoop Dogg would draw attention to rather than just performing or responding the way Nelly did. Hold Trump's feet to the fire, hold the Republicans' feet to the fire, and we'll see the very ugly truth that, in my opinion, they don't care to try to appeal to the black people because they don't need to. They can win without us. So that's why he can play these racist games because he's going to have somewhat of some of his base, which is racist, not all of it, but some of it is racist. So he can do that unashamedly and still appeal and win. When slavery was outlawed, where do you think all the people who still want to own slaves went? You know, when many Republicans speak, they speak as if all the racist stuff went out the window. Didn't Martin Luther King fix that? Or when we got rid of our slaves, we fixed all that, right? Where do you think the ideology went? It didn't just disappear into thin air. It's still here today. I'm sure a reasonable, intelligent person wouldn't say that there are no racists, So if we do believe that racists do exist still today in America, let's say there's 50 of them. How many of those 50 do you think voted for Donald Trump? Which of the major parties do you think the racists that remain, which party do you think that they identify with most? So let's just have that conversation uh, about black people being socially conservative, yet for some reason, in droves, will not support the Republican Party. They need to fix that. They need to care more about that. So let's stop getting caught up in these secondary and tertiary conversations and really hold this major party's feet to the fire for showing a lack of regard in many ways and being contradictory or in many ways anti-black in terms of policy. So that's my political spiel for the day. Somebody show Nelly why people think Trump is racist. There's ample proof and reasoning for it. But to be in the public eye that long and to speak out so ignorantly is just very embarrassing. So it takes me back to, again, the origin of a lot of these rappers. And I know some folks aren't going to like this, and here's where the anti black stuff comes in, but it's like just the reality of the situation. A lot of rappers come from the hood, right? A lot of them were drug dealers and then they became rappers. A lot of them were drug abusers and they became rappers. Look at all the people that Gucci Man has signed and how they can't even get their careers off the ground because they're still 1 foot in the streets. Look how many artists before they even blow up, they end up in prison. Right as the City Girls were blowing up, uh, JT goes to jail. Right as the Migos are blowing up, Offset goes to jail. Um, a lot of these people come from very, I wouldn't even say humble beginnings, very dysfunctional, dire straits. And then you just take them and put them on this national platform and put all this money behind them. What do you expect? Little Dirk is in jail right now because he was still moving like a street dude, even though he was supposed to try to brand himself as all my life, right? A rebrand, but you're still in the streets. Or that's what he's being accused of. But I kept saying to myself, even as the Young Thug trial was going on, these people talking about free Thug, do we really think that Young Thug didn't behave like a thug? You know? What do you expect when you take people from the streets and just put them on a national platform and give them this money? A lot of them don't change. They self-destruct because they've been given access to resources and put on a platform they're not ready for yet. So we essentially watch them die. You know, I'm streaming right now. I remember Kodak Black not too long ago was on Kai Cenat's stream on some type of drugs to where Kai just stopped the thing and had to pray for him. We're literally watching Kodak Black die, and he just celebrated the birth of his fifth child, the top of the year. And people talking about they want the next single, the next album. This guy is self-destructing in front of us. And it's not just him, it's so many artists are self-destructing, black men self-destructing in front of us. And we're not talking about the self-destruction, the drug abuse, the alcohol abuse, the still living a criminal life and still making more kids. We don't talk about those things. People really just sitting back waiting for the next song. Family, we got to do better. We got to do better. And sometimes what that means is not supporting someone's self destruction by not engaging with the content they're putting out. And this goes over to mental health too. I really appreciate years ago, I think Kanye West was in the middle of a very serious manic episode, and Charlemagne the God had an in person event where he was going to be interviewing or speaking with Kanye, and he canceled it. And he said he canceled it because I don't want to talk to Kanye or put him on a platform in this condition. He's not well. And it's very rare that you see that because so many people are so focused on a viral moment. Even though Kai Cenat prayed for Kodak Black, he still kept doing that stream. And not to speak to what his heart intentions were, but so often we're just focused on getting the entertainment we want or getting the views and the attention and the followers and subscribers that we have people that are dying in front of us, but we don't care because it's just business. And I understand some people are just business focused. I'm just saying we need some more people that care about people and not just their own bottom line. So that's needed. Uh, Moving forward. Oh my gosh. And this sounds crazy to even say that this really happened. This is real life. It sounds like something off of the Boondocks or South Park, but it really happened in real life. So I'm gonna read some things to you because it went down this week. Very strange, just strange, you know. What is going on, people? So where is it? So Sexy Red rapper. She posted an AI, artificial intelligence image of her uh, talking to or looking in the eye of Martin Luther King. She has like a red top on, he has a suit on, and it looks like they're in a club. And yeah, she's looking at Martin Luther King Jr. Um, the picture got some traction. People were sharing it, reposting it. She didn't add any caption to it. She just posted the picture. And then Dr. King's daughter, Bernice King, got a hold of the picture and she said, "This is intentionally distasteful, dishonoring, deplorable, and disrespectful to my family and my father, who is not here to respond himself because he was assassinated for working for your civil and human rights and to end a war and poverty. Please delete." Um, so she responded with that. Sexy Red didn't see it for a while, I guess, and didn't respond, didn't delete. But then people started attacking Bernice. People are attacking again. It sounds like something off of the Boondocks. People start attacking Bernice King for being too sensitive about her father who was assassinated. So people are attacking Bernice saying she's being too sensitive. It's not that deep. It's just a picture, so on and so forth. And I'm like, is this real? It's very real. But then I got some level of, I was encouraged a bit when I saw this Sexy Red, who gets labeled a certain way, so you might not have expected her to respond so graciously and maturely, but she did. Sexy Red responded to Bernice King and said, "You ain't wrong. I never meant to disrespect your family. My apologies. Just reposted something I saw that I thought was innocent." And then Bernice King says, "Thank you for your apology, which I sincerely accept. Please know that if it was not that it was not my intention that you be denigrated. I value you as a human being. I hope you understand my concerns about the image. I know that my father has become a bit of a caricature to the world and that his image is often used with no regard to his family, his sacrificial work, or to the tragic unjust way in which he died, a state sanctioned assassination. Unfortunately, I regularly challenge the disregard. I earnestly wish that people would imagine what it would feel like to see their deceased murdered father repurposed for party flyers, unjust legislation, etc. All the best to you, young lady." So that exchange ended well, right? Sexy Red, I don't know how old she is, probably late 20s, early 30s, I would assume. Then comedian Carlos Miller gets online and posts his own AI image or edited image of him with his arm around Dr. King's shoulder, like they're talking. And he said, "Don't let Bernice see this one." So it's not like he didn't know. He actually chose to post this after Bernice said what she said. I assume Carlos is 40 something, pushing 50, and it just seems like, bro, like he eventually deleted it. I actually tweeted him directly too and was like, you need to apologize too. I don't think he ever did though. But it's just kind of like, what's going on? Like, what is happening here? Uh, and again, sometimes people use that veil of it's just jokes. I know that some other stuff he did post instead of an apology was stuff like people just being fake mad. I don't care what y'all saying, and so on and so forth. And to me, it just reminds me of what I'll get to later, the stereotype of the bitter black man or the bitter old black man. Um, yeah, doubling down, uh, being inflexible, and not understanding of other people's experiences. But I'm gonna get to that in a minute. Uh, in addition to the uh, Trump stuff with the people performing at his inauguration, I'm literally preparing for today, and I see some more ignorant stuff, and I'm like, yo, okay, sheesh, man. So, and again, another rapper, Boosie. Boosie's tweeting some stuff out, and I guess Twitter's new settings allow you to see stuff anyway. But I see people responding to something Boosie said, so I go to his page to read it more in depth, and I find out that I'm blocked. So Boosie's blocked me, yet I can still see his tweets because of the way Twitter has it set up now. You can still see it even though you're blocked, but you can't interact with it. And I thought to myself, okay, why Boosie got me blocked? And I remember I did a video, and and the video got a lot of views, and I think it probably got to him. But again, wasn't tearing down a black man, but holding a black man accountable. I did a video talking about how Boosie set it up to have an adult woman sexually assault his son, and how that gets overlooked, I guess, because for many of us, we look at that, unfortunately, as a rite of passage for a boy, even though he's a child. Uh, all sex is good sex tends to be the mentality. And we wouldn't know this information if Boosie didn't tell us. So I did a video talking about abuse of boys and how Boosie did that, and how the other artist Erica Banks seems to have just gotten away with being at a high school and bending over and twerking in front of high school boys. And then when people called her out on that, she said, "Ain't nobody touched them kids." Yes, you didn't touch anybody, but you're spreading eagle, bending over in front of kids. Like, you don't know what else to do besides bend over. You were at a high school. But again, it's not about Erica Banks. So I assume that's why Boosie has me blocked. But again, taking us back to Trump, this is what I see from Boosie. Trump, he's tweeting to President Trump. Trump, check my case out. My case was dismissed, but Biden's DOJ recharged me with the same gun charge Biden pardoned his son of. I was told I am the only person in the country facing that charge now, President Trump. I already was given a 10-year sentence in state in 2009 for a third offense of marijuana, grams. I never was even offered rehab, straight to prison. In Trump, I'm Boosie. I'm Boosie. I'm a rapper, filmmaker from Baton Rouge. I was targeted. My mouth and things I stand on get me in a lot of shit, but I'm real. My lawyer, Megan Blanco, can explain this case. She knew the charges and against you were bad. She even spoke about it on radio. Hold on. She even spoke about it on radio. Here's another one. Damn, I ain't know so many, and he put no N-O instead of K-N-O-W. Damn, I ain't know so many people don't want me to be pardoned. This social media world would rather see you fall than be great. And not just with me, with any famous person. You better know that soon as you get into some shit, they go kick you way harder when you down than they lifted you up when you was up. We gotta stay out of trouble. People want you in prison away from your kids. It's funny to them because they have never been. And one more thing, y'all saying I shouldn't ask for a pardon. Shut the f up. Um, I'm go keep asking. This my life. I asked Biden for 1 month ago. Now I'm asking Trump. Where I'm from, closed mouths don't get fed. My case was already dismissed. I deserve a pardon. The lack of accountability is astounding. Boosie has regularly gotten online to say extremely ignorant things, from admitting to um, having your son sexually assaulted to telling us the details about the different women that you rotate in and out of your life. So you got these broken homes. He was recently going viral for crushing the spirit of his lesbian daughter. I forgot the words he said, but he posted something and everybody was like, "Yo, Boosie, that was really harsh." And yeah, however he worded it, it was really harsh. Um, and then he ended up apologizing for that. But again, for the world to see, this is a parent of children. Anytime you see Boosie live or something, he's typically smoking. And he's probably had his Instagram account deleted, I don't know how many times, for inappropriate behavior. But he keeps blaming, he regularly blames other people. It's unjust, it's unfair, but he's always in some mess. Can't stay out of legal trouble. Parent, ignorant content rapper, and now begging the white supremacist or white supremacist adjacent president for a pardon. And then you wonder why these rappers perform at Trump's inauguration and things like that, because many of them come from the same environment Boosie comes from. They're dysfunctional, they're not healthy, they need to stop performing and go to rehab, go to therapy, work through some of these things, heal, and mend their broken families. But instead, we're begging them for another song, and they're trying to maintain their livelihood, so they got to ask Trump for a pardon. Just imagine how out of whack Boosie's life is. I don't need a song. Wipe Me Down was cool, it was catchy, but this brother has consistently shown us that he is in a really bad place. And not to mention his health that we know about, as he's spoken candidly about. Uh, so, bringing it over, bitter black men. In recent years, when we see Boosie, it's typically him saying something negative, doing something bad, being tearing down Lil Nas or gay people as a whole, or his gay daughter. Just typically saying something out of pocket, not helpful, not nuanced. Um, and that's what he's become known for. I think of Carlos Miller, who regularly his content is similar to um, on Twitter. His content is similar to that post. It's sometimes clearly attempts to be funny. He's a comedian, of course. You gotta be funny, but I do think as you look through some of the stuff, you can see that some of this is also ignorance, jadedness, and some deep seated issues that are being presented as jokes. And a lot of it goes back to black women. A lot of the posts are framed as shots at women or ways that women need to change or flaws he's observed about women. And you know who does that even more than Carlos Miller? Lil Duval. I'm listing out all the people that I find to be extremely ignorant black men and in terms of the content they put out. And I have to say, it's probably Antonio Brown, Boosie, Lil Duval, and Carlos Miller. Consistently ignorant stuff, non-stop. And it's embarrassing, honestly. But Duval, he's going viral today because they're mad at him because he said this new reality gonna hit black women more than anybody because black men been knew this shit ain't fair out here, but now they about to face it. And I thought to myself, I know over the years I always see Lil Duval's always talking about women, and not in a positive way. It's typically something negative. It's a shot at women. It's so I literally decided to search on Twitter Lil Duval and the word bitch. And here's what comes up. All the bad bitches that never settle, still single though, with the crying and laughing face. Man, this bitch so fucking fine. I want with the I need it face, but I'ma wait till her career slow down. You used to could spot a slow dumb bitch, but now they be beautiful and articulate. Bitches think cause they ain't got a gut, they ain't getting bigger, but baby, you might not have a belly, but you wider than a love seat now. A bitch will walk right past the nigga with the bag because she too busy chasing the nigga with clout. So this brings me back to he tweets like a lot of other what I consider bitter black men who literally their contributions in speaking to the public are critiques for women or shots or passive aggressive jokes against women. And I don't know his backstory, but I'm speaking more so about an archetype. This looks like the archetype of the bitter black man or the bitter baby daddy who really don't have much to contribute to conversations besides swinging at women that you can't actually hit or getting back at the women that hurt you or speaking about women generally when in reality you're talking about your ex or you're passive aggressively talking about the women you deal with. You're making observations about your experiences and doing it in a passive aggressive, very emotional way. Uh, this is why so many men lived vicariously through Kevin Samuels because he was able to dunk on women in ways that they weren't. So I want to address this bitter black male archetype. The bitter black male or the bitter baby daddy is a man that has a chip on his shoulder against women and has not processed through it yet. And it comes out in passive aggressive tweets. It comes out whenever women come up in a topic of conversation. It comes out when he's dating. It comes out when he's at the barbershop talking to his homeboys about women. It comes out in anger and abuse verbally or physically toward women. You have issues with women generally. And it could go back to your mom. It could go back to your sisters. It could go back to a woman that cheated on you. It could go back to a woman where the relationship didn't work out and you fumbled her and now you feel guilt for fumbling a good woman. Or it could be a woman that moved on and got someone with better character than you. Regardless, there are men who talk shit about women all day and all night. And they're really talking about the 6 or 12 women that they dealt with, but they frame it as general stuff to get their anger off. And so many guys' public persona is this. It's not just Lil Duval. It's not just Carlos Miller. It's not just Boosie, where it's not necessarily about women, but it's just about you having a dysfunctional life of your own, and you're still just this bitter, angry person lashing out at other people, mixed in with all the drugs and alcohol being used, right? Because all these guys are smokers, the examples that I use. So I would just say, as a man, this isn't acceptable. I don't accept it in my friend group, but I choose not to be allow that or without pushing back against it. But so many men silently let guys trash black women, trash women generally in terms of their public persona, mistreat women in their private relationships. And I've said time and time again, oftentimes the goal is to find what some label a feminine woman, but in reality, what that ends up meaning is finding a woman that's going to put up with my BS. Finding a woman that's going to allow me to say and do these terrible things and never grow beyond this. I don't know these people's personal situations, but people like that, people that fit this archetype, tend to be with very weak and broken women that aren't going to challenge them to change, tend to have friend groups that are not going to challenge them to change. And one of the other ways that this plays out was very visible in the uh, clip that went viral from BET's show called For the Fellas. They had a few guys sitting together, and they had this guy named Cordell who was talking about loving his, I don't know if it's his girlfriend, fiance, or wife, but he was talking about saying I love you to her. And the clip went viral because what I sensed from it was the other gentlemen that were talking to him, whether they were in relationships or not, they seemed to be pissing on his parade a little bit. He's happy about being with this woman, and one of them even said to him, "Wow, you're pure." And I interpreted the pure comment to be, you're seemingly green and naive related to women. You seem to be very enjoyous related to how you view women, and that's a bit foreign to me. Or you haven't been made bitter by negative experiences and become the archetype that I've been talking about this whole time. So it's very unfortunate. And then one of the other guys made the comment about, if you need advice, let us know about relationship advice. And he even said, like, to give y'all advice or to get advice from y'all. And many interpreted that as like him realizing these guys are not in love or they have some jaded views, and I'll give them advice, but I don't need to be taking nothing from them. Um, Bitter black men, bitter baby daddy, whichever it is, there are so many black men that have these conflicted relationships with women, and they pass their jadedness and their bitterness and their cognitive distortions and their negative assumptions. They pass it off as wisdom. Unk just putting you on to the game on how these women are. When in reality, Unk has slept with 2 prostitutes and has 1 failed marriage with a woman he met at the strip club. And now he's trying to put you on game on how these women are. So there was a video that was perfect, with a guy talking about, and I'm glad that other black men are talking about it too, so I don't have to be the only one saying it. But he was talking about how a lot of this stuff that is presented to us by older black men, bitter baby daddies, as game or insight or wisdom, it's just them being extremely dysfunctional. Listen to this.
And so with that, yo, I saw this post on Twitter today, and I want to speak to it because.
And the post on Twitter said, "It sounds dramatic, but I genuinely pray more black boys and eventually men reject the indoctrination of misogyny imposed upon them. I don't know where it starts, but I think older black men that have led that life speaking candidly about their reality would be one.
I resonate with it so well. Pretty much this user goes on to say that she prays that boys, specifically black boys and men they, eventually grow into, begin to reject misogyny that is, passed down by any older man that most likely is giving advice to them at some point in their life or, throughout their childhood. And I relate to this so much. I'm going to tell you why. So just some quick background about how I grew up. I grew up with a single mom and four sisters. So I'm the oldest and only boy of five. I know it is crazy, right? But with that, just because I didn't have a father figure in the house didn't mean I didn't have a father figure at all. My grandfather, shout out to that man, love him, has, taken on the reins as my father figure, and he's the reason why I am the man I am today. But growing up without a physical father figure in the home, right? Especially if you're in a smaller town. I grew up in a smaller country or town, so my perspectives come from a town like that. But people in town know that, right? Like the teachers at school begin to know that. The coaches if you play sports, the coaches begin to know that. People at church, right? And so as a younger guy, you're gonna run into a lot of different men that take it upon themselves to kind of give you advice, give you some mentorship. And don't get me wrong, I'm all for mentorship, but you got to use the discernment. So the issue comes is you have all these men that say, "Oh, let's give this young man advice, give this young man advice," and you got to use discernment, right? And I know it can be tough, like looking up to somebody that may be a role model of yours or somebody that you have a great deal of respect for, and have to come to the conclusion like, okay, some of their practices and some of their thoughts are really flawed, especially when that advice is about how to be a man and when dealing or how to deal with women. A lot of their thoughts are not only flawed, they're antiquated, and they're coming from a place of probably trauma. Think about it. A lot of men, especially black men, older men, haven't been to therapy, haven't dealt with the stuff that happened to them when they were younger and the trauma that they went to. So their life experiences, their life views and thoughts and advice is coming from a place usually of trauma. And I'm not saying everyone, right? But I'm just gonna say a great deal. I mean, generally speaking, that's where the advice is coming from. And so with that, you have to understand, say, okay, I respect this person. I can listen to you. I can listen to your advice. British food is. Yo, I saw this post.
So, and to credit him, his Twitter account is __ big O __. Um, but yeah, dudes be jaded, hurt, and drinking and smoking their way through it, but want to give you some wisdom about these women. I was literally just talking to my barber about this. I told him about that clip with the guys from For the Fellas and Cordell, and he was like, "This is how I interpret that. That guy's excited, um, because he think he got a good woman, but we know that most women are horrible, and there's only like 20 good ones. So he's naive to think that he got one of the 20. So he gonna see, and those other guys were just trying to help him realize that eventually you gonna see she not one of the 20 good ones." And he said this with a serious face too, and I know he meant it. And he's married, but I knew that that's the mentality that a lot of guys have. That women are generally horrible people, but they are the necessary evil because being gay is not an option. So you ain't gonna sleep with men, even though you actually like your homeboys as humans, seemingly. You can't sleep with them. Ain't nobody about to be gay. That's the mentality. So now, even though I hate and despise all these personal aspects about women, they have the parts that I need for sex. So now I have to do this necessary evil of navigating through relationship with someone I don't like and can't get along with, but they have the goods. Unfortunately, that is the uh, conflict-driven relationship that a lot of men have with women. And again, due to their inability to process through working through difficulty with someone or navigating through in-depth relationships, they end up hating women. Here's why. Boy is a boy, grows into a man, and along the way starts dealing with women. Your male friends are your friends. You see them when you see them. You play games. You do sports. Those relationships are very minimal, lacking depth. So they're easy. Uh, Other associates, those are easy. Parent to child, keep the parents happy. Do what they ask. Once you get on your own, you don't got to deal with them no more. That's easy. So men live life having a whole bunch of easy surface level relationships. And then when they start dating, things get difficult because one, now you have a relationship where someone has expectations of you. So men get jaded toward women because women in their romantic relationships end up being the first ones that show them you're not meeting the mark as an adult. Your parents may be disappointed in you as a child, but it's women as an adult that get disappointed in you when you don't show up as a good partner. They may challenge them to grow in areas they don't want to grow in. So she's disappointed in you. She's challenging you to grow in areas you don't want to grow in or change. Uh, she may deny you sex because of the first two. And you get upset about that because a lot of us are just in a relationship for the sex to begin with. Don't let him get cheated on by her. So men begin to think that women are just inherently these horrible or difficult people, when in reality, it's not that women are inherently horrible or difficult. It's just that you've only ever had a beyond surface level relationship with the women you were dating. And you would find that if you had more in depth relationships, if you did more with your homeboys than get drunk on the weekends, and actually build an in-depth relationship where you talk about things that matter, if you built something deeper with your parents or your uncle or your brother or your others or the other women in your life that are platonic like your sisters, you would recognize that close relationship, long-term relationship creates more opportunity for conflict, and you need the emotional intelligence to work through that. So that is what's happening in creating these bitter baby daddies and bitter black men, is they think that you women are uniquely difficult and evil because those are the only relationships that they put effort into. When in reality, it's not that the women are uniquely difficult or evil. All of us have our depravities and our weaknesses and our issues. It's just that you and many men only try with women. But if you actually try in these other relationships to have an in depth relationship, you realize, oh, this is difficult. This takes work. Life changes, seasons change, people get sick, money changes, and we have to adjust with the flows of life to work at maintaining this relationship. But if you only do that with women, you think, and if you lack nuance in your thought, you think it's the women that are the problem. So this needs to be dealt with because I'm telling you, this is the source of the gender wars. It's men not recognizing that they lack depth in relationships. They lack self-awareness and don't want to change. And when you try to move in with someone, build a relationship once with someone, build a marriage with someone, they're going to end up being the one to tell you about yourself. Not because women are inherently evil, but because that's the one that you actually spent extended periods of time with and went deeper with. But if we actually took the time in these other relationships, I always say, if we had deeper friendships where people can tell us about ourselves and help us to grow, the relationships that are romantic could go a lot easier. But if your girlfriend is the first person to have to tell you you have anger issues, you need to go to therapy, you drink too much, those are things that you should have figured out before that relationship and all these other relationships. Assuming we're talking about monogamy, if you're only dating one person, that is one romantic relationship. All the other people in your life are non romantic, and they could be the ones helping you to be self aware so your partner don't have to be the one to rub up against all these rough edges. So I pray and I counsel black men to help us not have to be liabilities in our relationships and not be the bitter guy online tweeting about how horrible these women are. And I hope that you don't become the bitter, drunk, always high 45-year-old uncle that only has negative stuff to say about women under the guise of wisdom or putting you on game. But I also hope that you don't become that guy that finally does find a woman that you think is good. And I hope you find that relationship. But I also know there are men who get in relationships and supposedly are happy, but they're still online talking trash about all these other women because there are those guys that genuinely believe their girl is the only good girl, but all other women are horrible. And that's still not good. That's still not good. You got to work through your jadedness and bitterness toward women generally that you've projected onto women generally because of past negative situations that you haven't processed through. So let's not become bitter black men. I've seen people talk about bitter baby mamas, but there are bitter baby daddies who are upset that she moved on and found a man with more emotional intelligence, more money, and more patience. And you're sitting in the same spot doing the same stuff. So I want to encourage the brothers to work through this stuff so that you don't become just this shell of a man or the old guy who the young guys are looking up to, saying, yeah, you an OG because you older, but I don't want to become like you. Last thing, the part Kevin Samuels didn't talk about enough was lonely men. He talked about women being lonely, but there are so many lonely men who die at home alone. They're not taking care of their health. So you 65 with high blood pressure, high cholesterol, can't coexist with women, and surface level friendships. So you sitting in that house by yourself and you die. And if you're that old, your parents may not be around, so it's hard to even set your funeral up. There are men who are in that stage of life right now in their 20s or 30s. Can't coexist with women, end up getting so angry and jaded that they fall back from actual romantic relationships. And this is something real y'all need to know that is going on. Men get overwhelmed with the idea of coexisting with women because they lack emotional intelligence and depth and self-awareness, aren't willing to go to therapy to do some work on themselves. So they decide, this is too much. So we quit on actual romantic relationships and choose to just pay for sex. That's where a lot of men are. I'll pay for sex or just keep rotating these casual relationships, hookups from Tinder or Bumble. Giving up on relationships because I can't coexist with these women, but I can have sex. We have lowered the bar, so you know what? I'll just get some sex, take care of that urge, and then when I want companionship, I'll hang out with my homeboys. That's where a lot of guys are. Even before they get to the 60-year-old bitter, lonely man, there's the 30-year-old man who pays for sex, rotates casual relationships, but doesn't even date anymore because he don't know how to coexist with women. That is not a good spot, brothers. I'd encourage you, as I'm drawing attention to these issues, I encourage you, if you don't want to book a session to talk to a therapist, consider working through, if any of this piques your attention, if it sounds like you, if it sounds like somebody you know, if it's someone who you don't want to be, consider reading Whole Brother, Debunking the Myths That Break the Black Family. It's my first book. I addressed a lot of this stuff that contributes toward this. It's available on homebrothermission.com. Send you a signed copy. You can also get it on Amazon, but they take a big chunk out of it. But I want to encourage the guys, if this is catching your attention, if you see this going on, even if it's not you, but you see it going on and you want to change it, cop Whole Brother, Debunking the Myths That Break the Black Family, where I deal with a lot of this. So that's all I got for you today. Thank you for joining me. I'll see you next time. And remember, you can send, I didn't do no questions today, but remember, you can send questions via our social channels. DM us questions if you would like it to be answered live. I'll make sure to do about 4 questions next week since I didn't do none this week. All right. Talk to y'all later.